Hi, I'm Darren Lewis. You're watching Chasing Green Arrows, and this is my team for the upcoming European Championships. I've gone with a 4-3-3 formation because I think there will be a lot of goals at this summer's European Championships, and I think there are quite a few players ready to put themselves in the shop window as well. But I'm going to start at the back. Because there are one or two players that I think will be stars and continue with the good form they showed in European Championship qualifying. And I'm going to start with the Belgian goalkeeper, Thibaut Courtois. He's 29. He hasn't actually had a great season with Real Madrid. They finished second in their league. He's had one clean sheet in his last 5 games. They went out, Real Madrid, of the Champions League to the eventual winners, Chelsea, and they finished behind Atletico Madrid in the league. But for Belgium, Courtois has been terrific. Now, I know, having dealt with him when he was a Chelsea player, that sometimes he can have his moments, but he has been a wonderful last line of defence for his country, where there is far more quality, I would argue, at the back at the moment than there is in the Real Madrid team. Just 3 goals conceded in qualifying. You have to admit it was an easy group. Russia, Scotland, Kazakhstan, Cyprus and San Marino. But I think that other teams, opposition teams, will be far too busy dealing with Belgium's attacking talents to be wondering about the players at the back. Now, in terms of the back four, let me introduce you to Zeki Celik. I like him a lot, and so do some of the teams, the top teams in England. Arsenal, Spurs and Manchester City, all very interested in signing him this summer. Inter Milan as well, the champions of Italy, they're keen on him too. It cost them around about £12 million, which would be a steal in the current market. He's had a fine first season playing. It's not a first season, but he's had a fine season playing for the French club Lille, who've just beaten PSG to the title in France. I think he'll have a very good Euros, which is why those clubs want to try and see if they can get a deal done for him quickly. I'll just spin you through a couple of the other defenders as well. Toby Alderweireld, again, like Courtois, not brilliant for his club so far this season, but in the Belgium team, far more organised and efficient. So I've chosen him. Again, that stat, Belgium, only 3 goals conceded in their 10 qualifying games, and he's played in most, if not all of them. Also in my fantasy team, I've gone for the 34-year-old Juventus defender, Leonardo Bonucci, because he's still got it. Italy, again, that qualifying record, only 4 goals conceded. Now, you might counter, and critics might counter, they're up against the Finns, the Greeks, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Armenia and Liechtenstein, but they retain their consistency at the back to make sure they stayed strong. And the manager, head coach, Roberto Mancini, well, he's done a good job of nursing them back to at least being respected going into the tournament. Now, their Group A, it's very interesting because none of the teams in it, for me, should be taken lightly. They've got Switzerland, Bril Mbolo, of course, Granit Xhaka from Arsenal. They like scoring goals for them. Turkey are serious dark horses as well. They finished 2 points behind France in Group H. And Gareth Bale, he spearheads a Wales challenge. They finished only 3 points behind Croatia in Group E, and they've won 5 of their last 7, so they too should be respected. But I think Bonucci will be a decent signing for a fantasy league team because of his consistency at the back. Likewise, Alexander Zinchenko, 24 years old. We all know how good he is as a player. Showed his intelligence this season with his ability to step into midfield from fullback and even further forward. Quality left back who should get a few assists for the Ukraine side. Now, some people might look at Ukraine and think, well, fairly unfashionable. They topped their qualifying group, which also included Serbia and Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal. So don't write Ukraine off, and don't write off the quality of Alexander Zinchenko. If I go into midfield, Dani Olmo is 23, plays for Spain, scores goals, terrific season for Leipzig, scored 9 goals for club and country this season. I think he'll be a good player and a good acquisition if you're looking for value in the market ahead of the European Championship. Scored 2 in World Cup qualifying against Georgia and Kosovo, and also goals in his final two games of the season, one of which sadly was only a consolation in the German Cup, won by Dortmund. But he's a good player. And I think if you're looking for a little bit of value, because obviously we're all going to invest quite heavily in our strikers, aren't we? I think go with Danny Olmo. He could be a good signing for you. Now, Raheem Sterling, very, very interesting, very controversial pick in some people's eyes, because a lot of people look at him and say, well, he hasn't had that good a season. But, he's fourth in the assist table in qualifying. He had 6 assists on top of his 8 goals in the 7 games he played for England in qualifying. That's not a bad record. Nor is the 16 goals he scored for club and country this season. If you're going to get stick having scored 16 goals for club and country, it just shows how high the bar that you've set for yourself in terms of quality is. I think he will play. And the reason I think he will play is this. Southgate trusts his players, the ones that have done well for him. I know he has said that he will pick players in form, but he does like a front line with pace. And Sterling has that pace to get in behind defences. If you look at the teams they're up against in the group stages as well, none of them are particularly quick. And I think he'll have at the back. And I think he'll have a lot of joy going up against them. So I'm going to go with Sterling because of his assist record, because of his pace, because of his ability to score goals, and because of his understanding with Harry Kane, spoiler alert, up front. Now, one other player I'm going to go for, he's not unfamiliar to you at all. Thomas Tuchel. He has had, I'm going to call it a beautiful season with West Ham because he came in January last year. They made the deal permanent when they realised his quality in the summer, and he scored 14 goals for club and country over the past campaign, including a hat-trick in the World Cup qualifying win over Estonia in March. He's good at set pieces, as we know, and he has that ability to arrive late in the box as well. I think he's going to have a good, solid European Championship for the Czech Republic, and I think he too would be a very good signing. It was up front, really, that's interesting. I gave you the spoiler alert, so you obviously know I'm going to go with Harry Kane. The reason I've picked Kane is this. It's very interesting. On the one hand, he's only scored 2 goals in his last 6 games, but those 2 goals were in his last 3 matches of the season. And I was at the World Cup in 2018. I was in the room for his press conference ahead of England's first game, where he talked about the belief that he had in himself and his belief that he could compete for the Golden Boot. And there were actually people who had a bit of a laugh at him and said, no way could you win a Golden Boot at the World Cup when you've got the qualities of Messi and Ronaldo and all of the big stellar names at the tournament. But he walked away with the Golden Boot. And I don't care if you tell me what he was up against or anything like that. The fact is that he delivered on his promise. He's won the Premier League Golden Boot 3 times now, including the last one most recently. And for me, you can't possibly have a fantasy team going into this tournament without Harry Kane. He's got pace either side of him. He's got creativity in behind him. Foden, Grealish, Mount. So much quality. And England, they've got the 3 things. I mentioned Sterling already, who has got a great understanding with Kane. But England have got depth in those attacking areas. They've got winners in the side. They've just had players win the Champions League. They've had a number of players winning the Premier League as well. They've got genuine quality. And for me, you cannot have a fantasy team without having Kane up front alongside Romelu Lukaku. What a player he has been so far this season, answering so many questions that there had been about him from Manchester United fans who had been quite underwhelmed by his stay there. You know how old he is, 28 years old, 37 goals in 51 games for club and country over the past campaign, scored in each of the final 3 games of the season and arrives at the European Championships in terrific form. He wasn't among the highest scorers in European Championship qualifying. He had scored 7 goals. There were 9 players with more goals ahead of him in terms of the qualifying campaign. But he will fancy his chances in a group that includes Denmark, Finland, and Russia. Now, Denmark, they conceded 6 goals in their 8 qualifying games to finish second in their group. If they can't keep out Georgia, Ireland, and Switzerland, I can't see them keeping out Lukaku. I think he will fill his boots, and you have to have him in your side. Here's a bit of value for you as well. Gerard Moreno, 29 years old, a magnificent season for Villarreal, scored a total of 32 goals for club and country. They include the opening goal for Villarreal in the Europa League final. They went on to win, as we all know, on penalties. Now, it's hard not to see him getting game time, given his red-hot form. He scored against Kosovo in World Cup qualifying, and he scored against Switzerland in the Nations League in November. And when you look at the Spain squad, there is some decent attacking talent. Defensively, I look at their rivals, and I'm not too worried about what they might put up against Spain. Poland, obviously, genuine quality in attack, but defensively not so much. Slovakia, they conceded 11 goals in their 8 qualifying games. Sweden conceded 9 times in 10 games. And Poland, they're better with only 5 goals conceded. But I just can't see them keeping out Spain. And I think Moreno, given the season that he's had, I think Moreno will go into the mix in terms of who starts or who comes on at decisive moments of the game to score goals late on. So that's my 11. I think there are goals in my front 6. I think there's defensive stability in my back 5. And I think that there is a lot of value in there if you're searching for cheap players who could make an impact for you. My goalkeeper, I've chosen Piatov from the Ukraine. Now, he's getting on a bit. He's 36 years of age, but Ukraine conceded only 4 goals in qualifying in a group which included Serbia and Portugal. And that tells me either his defense are excellent at protecting him, either he is good at organizing them, or both. I think he's got a lot of experience, and I think he's a cheap alternative to some of the other stars, superstars, at much bigger prices. I've mentioned Italy and the reasons why I've chosen Bonucci, same reasons I've chosen Chiellini as well. Juventus have been a bit disappointing this season, but he's provided the platform for Italy, or helped to provide the platform for Italy to qualify from their group with ease. And I've also gone with 2 players that aren't that familiar. One of them is Loic Nego. He's 30 years of age. He's a midfielder. I like him a lot. Plays for Molvidi in Hungary. Now, he scored 8 times this season, including 2 in his last 2. I just wonder whether he will be a bit of a bargain off the bench at around about £4 million. Major tournaments are events where players that have been unfamiliar to many people make a name for themselves, and get Premier League clubs in particular reaching for their checkbooks because they represent value. He is one of them. Another is Alex Kral, who plays for Spartak Moscow. West Ham trying to get a deal done for him before the tournament begins because they've seen how good he is. He would cost £14 million or thereabouts. I think we'll find out why in the Euros, and West Ham could well find out where their money has gone in the Euros. They've had a lot of success shopping in that market and in and around the Czech Republic. And I think this could be another player that brings them a lot of joy. I have focused mostly on midfielders and defenders on my bench because I just think, as we all know, the teams with the best defense, the best platform for the offensive players to express themselves, tend to win tournaments. And I think I've got a good chance with mine.